The Out of Bounds Show podcast is brought to you by Boar's Head, premium meats, cheeses, and hummus. Boar's Head, compromise elsewhere.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the BankPlus Studio.
Is now morning.
Live in the studio. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Lowbound. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
All set? Let's go.
The Zone.
And good morning. Woo! It is a max effort Monday on the battle for the Golden Egg Week. 3 shows to knock out before we get to the big game on Thursday night in Stark Vegas, Mississippi. 2 ranked teams. Who knew? Before the season. Or in September. Or October. Can't count those Bulldogs out. They're going to make this thing competitive. It sure looks like. According to Vegas, definitely looks like it. All right. Good morning. Welcome in. Out of Bounds. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, WRKS. We're streaming live for you on the Out of Bounds radio app and thezone1059.com. You can hit us up on the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line. 601. I'm on remote. 601-995-1059. 995-1059. Twitter handle at Bowbounds. Brought to you by RPT and Rick's Pro Truck. And your Ag Up Equipment text line is 601-885-3776. Want to say good morning, welcome into Blake Mania. We hope that he got some rest this weekend. He was yawning during prep, but I was hoping he would come in, with a little more max effort energy. But we'll see how things go for the Blakey Blakester. I actually watched like 30 or 40 minutes of Moneyball last night. I was bored with everything else, so I turned that on. I don't know why, but anyway. The show is powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. Stop by there. Have a good time. Place a couple of bets. Also award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Mississippi State and Ole Miss win their games, and we got a short week, So Mississippi State's game was not competitive. I don't think anybody was surprised there with Tennessee State. Will Rogers looked great. They pulled their starters early. They did what they wanted to do against a team that, is several tiers below them and divisions below them and so on. I think the players were more excited about getting pictures with Eddie George after the game than, which they did, Mississippi State players, rather than playing Tennessee State. But they did what they were supposed to do. Game was over early, and you moved on. Ole Miss and Vanderbilt was not super competitive, but somewhat competitive. Ole Miss wasn't interested in the game, and I don't blame them. They had just come off a huge win against A&M in a physical game where they won the battle in the line of scrimmage and at the point of attack. And so they went through the motions and still handled Vanderbilt 31-17. Vanderbilt did, generate some offense, which I think most of us thought, 3 and outs all day for Vanderbilt. But, Vandy put up 454 yards. But, again, Ole Miss was not in it, was not engaged, and was not interested. And that happens. To all of our teams at some point during the season. Now, Thursday night, the 2 teams will be locked in and ready to go and ready to play for the Golden Egg. And it is the Golden Egg. I know the Clarion Ledger has messed up a lot of things over the last 90 years, okay? But it is the Golden Egg. And it should be known as the battle for the Golden Egg. Can't can't let a bunch of Ole Miss journos mess it up. They messed up enough the last 90 years going through the Clarion Ledger, right? So it's the battle for the Golden Egg Thursday night. Ole Miss at Mississippi State. And thank goodness, the Clarion's, in the rearview mirror and so on, because that was nauseating for the better part of several decades, talking about letting people down on a daily basis. Anyway, so it starts off Ole Miss -2. Now it's swung to Mississippi State as a 1. Depends on your book. You can find it, and who knows what your local bookie has. Good grief. As I've got some buddies who do that, and I like to get their feedback on what those numbers look like. Those things are all over the place. But the bottom line is it's basically a pick 'em. It's shifted, back and forth. So we got to pick 'em Thursday night, Ole Miss in Starkville against Mississippi State. They won last year, and there is a lot on the line. I know the bowls have been devalued, and you can't remember who played in any of them last year, and I can't either. But it's fun to win this game, and it's fun to go to a better bowl game. So you want to win your way into the best possible scenario and situation. We got 2 phenomenal quarterbacks. One that I think is going to be the first quarterback picked in the NFL draft, in Matt Corral. And then you've got a young quarterback who's only a sophomore. This will not be his last game, obviously, in Will Rogers, who could start 2 or 3 more years after this year in Starkville. And he's already burning up the record books and playing great football and developing into a premier college quarterback. So we have, you could argue we have the 2 best quarterbacks in the Southeastern Conference in the state of Mississippi, right? Matt Corral 1, Will Rogers 2. Bryce Young would be up there. But look, Bryce Young doesn't have to go through what those 2 have to go through, especially Will Rogers. But he's a good player. And, Blake, do you think that already rubbed Alabama fans wrong, the way I just framed that up?
Yeah, I saw on the text line some Alabama fans were texting us in on Sunday, so we clearly, what's the thing that the Ole Miss people say, rent-free in the Alabama fans' heads? Something like that.
Yeah. LSU's rent-free in your head, buddy. All right, so, we'll talk about Mac Jones maybe later. But Rookie of the Year, Mac Jones to Blake Scott. That's what he is. So Dan Mullen gets fired at Florida.
Who?
And a lot of you are happy about that, which is kind of insane. But that's where we are in sports. Nothing brings out petty like sports and politics. And then you got those Twitter streets, and you can really kind of, show yourself. Dan Mullen is fired. He'll go to the House with $12+ million. And wow, did that unravel quickly. He goes to 3 straight New Year's 6 bowl games and played in the SEC championship game last year and played Bama really, really well last year in the SEC championship game and pretty well this year. And, man, when the wheels fell off, they fell off. And I guess you could go back to when Florida threw the shoe against LSU and lost that game and haven't really been able to get their feet under them since. And Dan lost at Kentucky, at South Carolina, and at Missouri, and some other games. But the one against Missouri in overtime, I was watching the game. I watched, 90% of that game, just because if you listen to this show last Thursday and Friday, you heard me say that I did not think he was going to make it regardless. And, he made some bad decisions in press conferences. And then Florida's whacked out on their expectations like every SEC school.
Dan Mullen, 29-6 prior to the shoe throw, 5-9 since the shoe throw.
5-9 since the shoe throw. The throwing of the shoes in Gainesville, Florida. So now you got to replace a really good coach. The odds say that you will not go get a coach as good as Dan Mullen, but you may get lucky. Every now and then, 1 out of 100 hires, you get lucky. The Out of Bounds Show podcast is presented by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Your golf game starts with Edwin Watts Golf Shop. All right, good morning. Welcome in. What is happening? The battle for the golden egg is happening on a short week. Thursday night in Starkville. It will be packed, and it could be some nasty weather. So you'll have to plan and prepare accordingly. Mississippi State with the win over Tennessee State. Ole Miss with the win over Vanderbilt. And one team has 7 wins. The other one has 9. And MSU could win their way into maybe a Chick-fil-A Bowl type game, and Ole Miss is hunting the sugar. This is wild and wacky, and we've got 2 outstanding quarterbacks. Matt Corral makes it official that this will be his last year at Ole Miss. We all knew that, but, you got to make it official at some point. And he thanked the Ole Miss fan base, obviously, for everything that they have done for him. And so this will be his last golden egg game. And Will Rogers is just getting started. He was a spot starter last year as a true freshman, and now as a true sophomore is riding his way into the record books. So both defenses are suspect, and I don't know. That's why we're going to play it. 3.5 hours or so. Should be fun. Nerve-wracking for everyone involved, and one that everybody wants. Everybody wants this game. And now that it's become competitive since 1991, that would be 2 things happen. We've talked about this, and we kind of go through it every year. 1, Jackie Sherrill was hired, and 2, the game was moved away from Memorial Stadium and on campus. And so you're looking at basically 500 since 91, and when you go another 30 years from now, it's going to look the same way. We're live in the mobile BankPlus Studio. BankPlus, it's more than a name, it's a promise. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, WRKS. We're powered by MississippiSportsMedicine.com, and any orthopedic hiccup, and you can see the Mississippi Sports Medicine team out and about, whether it's softball, football, basketball, soccer, and everything in between. Their team is out and about making sure that student-athletes get what they need on the orthopedic side. MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Dan Mullen out at Florida. Some of you celebrated that in your home with your buddies on group text. Or even on Twitter, made sure to let everybody know that you loved seeing Dan Mullen get canned. He'll walk away with $12 million, has already made over $20 million just at Florida, made over $20 million at Mississippi State. So I don't know what Dan will do. Never thought of Dan as a lifer. Well, I'm trying to think. Well, let's compare him to the 2 guys that were together for a while. Hugh Freeze, to me, is a guy that's going to coach well into his 60s. That's who Hugh Freeze is. I mean, he's a ball coach. Dan he's more worldly, has other interests, and so on. And, of course, he's made more money. But to date, now, Hugh may find his way back into Power 5. We're still waiting. And it doesn't look great right now for him to snag a job, but I don't know, Blake. Maybe it does happen if some of these mid-tier jobs get into their 3rd, 4th, 5th candidate. He's not the leading candidate by any stretch.
Still crazy. Still crazy that he's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he could move over to Virginia Tech, and they would be ready to roll.
Oh, my gosh.
He'd be fantastic at TCU. So, I don't know. Maybe Brian Harsin gets crazy and tries to get the Washington job today or 3 days from now or whatever and realizes this animal in the SEC is not something that I want to be a part of. Because as he loses his fourth game in a row this weekend to Alabama, if you think that Florida melted down, just wait. Auburn will melt down this weekend, and if A&M loses to LSU, which is definitely a possibility, and we wouldn't put anything past Eddie O, as this is his back against the wall swan song, A&M will melt down. They will melt down if they lose this weekend, and again, I would not be surprised. So we could have two more meltdowns in the league before this thing, even before we get into the postseason. Auburn is in the process of melting down after losing to South Carolina, Mississippi State, and A&M, and they could very well finish 6-6. And then A&M, with all this super recruiting and the last two top 5 classes for Jimbo, and they currently have a top 5 class, they could lose to LSU at LSU this weekend, and then they'll melt down. But back to Florida. It's a really good job. Florida thinks just because of what happened over a 4-year stretch that that's who they are. Well, I mean, we won two natties. Yeah, you did with Urban Meyer. You're not hiring Urban Meyer again. But that's who we are. No, it's not. It's really not. I mean, if you look at your history pre and post, I think we all have to kind of look at, okay, what are we? There could be little chunks of time where, oh, wow, we won big. But in the grand scheme of things, what are you? Have you won consistently? Spurrier won one, and he gave you had never won big. You'd had some success, but you'd never won an SEC championship prior to Spurrier. That's incredible, right? Right? The 70, 80 years prior to Spurrier's arrival, you never won an SEC championship. And then post-Spurrier, you found Urban. Great hire by Jeremy Foley. And then since then, it's been a bunch of, you've been good at times and bad. I didn't know that Florida would go 4-8. I would think that Blake and I, Jim McElwain threw up a 4-8 at Florida. That's hard to do, I would think.
Yeah.
But I'm going to throw out what Florida – I'm going to frame up what kind of who they are, where they are, and what's going to happen in the SEC Insider Hit. And a lot of you are going to get it and understand it, and then some of you it's going to go over your head, and that's fine. But I jotted down some things yesterday. I watched the press conference from Scott Strickland, the AD, and I've got some thoughts on now that Florida has thrown their hat in the ring again, which is not what you want to do. The last thing, if Scott Strickland, if you could get him in a room this morning and he could say whatever he wanted, he would say, the last thing I wanted to do was fire Dan Mullen. He wanted to give Dan a shot to, restructure his staff. But that's not where we are. That's not where we are. And as long as you have donors who are willing to pay or buy out, coaches, right? These are rich men and women who, once you get to a certain level, there's nothing to spend your money on. I mean, what's your worth? $500 million, $800 million, $1 billion? I mean, you've already got the other two homes. You got a huge portfolio and so on. So you get bored. Your wife's you've already made a big donation to the ballet and to the big children's museum in your hometown. You've already done all that. And so you got to find, hey, I'm sitting here this morning. I got $550 million in the bank. What am I going to do? Well, I'm bored. All right, let's fire this coach. This sounds kind of fun is not the word I'm looking for, but exciting to get something new because he's not living up to the expectations, fair or unfair, that we have. The Out of Bounds Show is powered by MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Good morning. Welcome in on a Max Effort Monday.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is presented by the Premium Cigars at Havana Smoke Shop. Visit their 2 locations, I-55 in Jackson and on the Res, for your premium cigar needs. Only at Havana Smoke Shop.
Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving week to you and your family. Hope you're doing well. Safe travels to you. Enjoy some food. Blake gets very territorial this week about Thanksgiving and how much he's going to have to, I think what's offered, probably where he is in line, when everybody's going through. He's already, not happy that the game's on Thursday night. That would be the battle for the golden egg between your Ole Miss Rebels and MSU Bulldogs. So we'll have to navigate our way through Blake Mania's kind of approach on Thanksgiving. But I wish you and yours a happy Thanksgiving. I want to thank you for making us your SEC football show of choice, along with sports and entertainment. We own the food piece. We'll continue to. We've done some things in the last 60 days to bring you even more of that in 2022. Very, very excited about that. But we got a lot to do before, we get to 2022. We got the big game Thursday. We'll have all these job openings and the, silly season and the coaching searches and so on. We'll have an idea of where you're going to go bowling. Recruiting is whatever it is, December 18th or something. And then, of course, we'll have the holidays and the bowl games, and then we'll come out into 2022. So it's exciting. There's a lot going on. And we got the big one in Starkville on Thursday night. We'll have Michael Katz on at 8 a.m. today. Ole Miss Insider, djournal.com. Tom Luganbill will join us at 8:30, National College Football Analyst with ESPN. And then Steve Robertson will wrap up the show at 9:30. So we don't usually do this on a Monday, but because we're on a short week, just like your Rebs and your Dogs, this is the way we'll kind of line it up, so to speak. Congratulations to MRA Football. They were on 105.9 The Zone ESPN on Saturday night. They've now won back-to-back-to-back three-peat in Madison at MRA. Herbert Davis, 3 in a row, and they beat Hartfield on Saturday night. That's something that a lot of people that have even, followed MAIS or MPSA, whatever, but MAIS now, sports and football never thought would happen. And they went the Clemson route. I'll get into Dan Mullen. Give me 2 minutes here. I've got some thoughts on Dan and where Florida is going or not going, really. So if you followed metro area sports, obviously there's been some booms in certain areas, right? Madison, Rankin County, wherever the population goes, that's where ambitious parents go, da-da-da-da. We've been talking about that for 15 years, long before anybody else was, because they can't talk sport and business. But the deal is, MRA has won 3 in a row. And they really took the Clemson approach of a long, slow build. And there are people who I think will probably struggle to tip their hat. But if you step back in the grand scheme of things and look at the way that Herbert Davis has built the program, it's impressive. I mean, they took losses early. They couldn't get past prep. They, this, that, and the other. But they were in the championship games just about every year. Now they've won 41 of 42 MAIS games. They beat Deion Sanders' team. They beat Briarcrest. They beat Corinth. They beat, a bunch of teams that will play them. The teams in the metro area on the public school side will not play them. But they beat teams both out of state and some of the better teams in state. And now they have P5 and G5 talent. So it's an unbelievable story. And it's kind of a Dabo Clemson story of a long, slow build to get where they wanted to go. And, they've got a kid that's going to the Naval Academy. They've got one that's deciding between MSU and Ole Miss. Davis Dalton's committed to Southern Miss. Street Toller has offers. There's more of them, and John White's going to be the best quarterback, has a great opportunity to be the best quarterback in the state of Mississippi in his class. He's only a sophomore and threw up some record-setting numbers. Obviously, what is it that they do, Blake, that most schools don't do?
They throw the football.
They throw the football.
And they do it well.
And they do it well. And they went hard on the one thing about Herbert is if you give him the ground game, then they will take that, and they rushed, like mad crazy people on Saturday night. But when you have the ability to throw it, it changes everything. When you have the ability to throw it, it changes everything. Mississippi State is starting to realize that. So, congratulations to MRA Football, 3 in a row. You know that they're a partner on the station, and their games are on 105.9 The Zone ESPN. Now, let's go to the SEC Insider Hit this morning. Brought to you by our friends at Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home. Save with your local Farm Bureau insurance agent. In any of the 82 counties in the state of Mississippi. Save with your local Farm Bureau insurance agent. Let's get into Dan Mullen in Florida. I'll have some time, plenty of time for the golden egg, and we've already hit some of it. So Dan Mullen's let go. And Blake just threw out his record. He can do it again here in a second. But they went to 3 New Year's Six bowl games and the SEC championship game last year. And Florida fires him because it just turned into a tire fire. You could go from the shoe that was thrown last year when they lost to LSU, or you could go to a block field goal return for a touchdown against Kentucky. And once they lost that game, they could never find their mojo again. And when you lose at Kentucky, at South Carolina, and at Missouri, and Georgia manhandles you, and then you say some things in press conferences that rubs the fan base wrong, that's where we are this day and age. Is it what they wanted to do? No, you don't ever want to move off a coach that's winning. You want to give him a shot to, restructure his staff and figure it out. So a lot of people yesterday were like, what is Florida? And I read the articles this morning from Andy Staples and Bruce Feldman and Daniel, whatever his name is, Young or something. And what is Florida? Well, it's a top 5, top 10 academic institution. It's down in the Sunshine State. It's got tremendous resources and advantages, and they didn't win for 90 years, and then they won with Spurrier and got one, and then Urban bottled something really special over the course of 4 years, and then they thought, well, that's who we are. We win a national championship every other year. Now, people don't go back and look. Urban only had 3 double-digit winning seasons out of his 6. But he won 2 natties. And once a fan gets in it, well, that's who we are, then that's where you are. Now, some people have said, well, what's the solution and what's the answer at Florida? In other words, as Scott Strickland marches out on the street with a big, big, big bag of money, just like LSU and Southern Cal. You see the pictures this time of year, right? Santa with that big bag over his shoulder. It's toys, but let's say it's money. We've got millions and millions and millions of dollars in this bag. And we're heading out on the street. And we're going to compete against LSU and Southern Cal. And we think we're a blue blood, and Urban told us we were a blue blood, and Spurrier somewhat told us we were a blue blood. But for the better part of 20 years, other than Urban's deal, we've been kind of good. and sometimes it's been rocky. So what is the answer or the solution for Florida? I'll tell you what I think it is. There is no answer. Well, Bo, what do you mean? Well, what Florida wants is they want to hire a coach and then they want to go win a national title. Well, if you're not going to be an elite recruiter and you're not willing to do the things that it takes to be an elite recruiter, which is pay prospects. I mean, we're talking about the ones that Georgia and Bama and a few other schools, A&M, and God bless them. I mean, they may go 8-4, but when we're talking about top 20, top 40, top 100 prospects, you're talking about north of $200,000, $300,000 per prospect. Florida prides themselves on being a top 5 public university, research monster, all this. They pride themselves on being above recruiting like that. They do. I've talked to people at Florida.
That means they can pride themselves on not being an elite program.
That means there is no solution.
You've hit the ceiling.
If we bring in Lincoln Riley, it doesn't matter. But Bo, if we bring in James Franklin, it doesn't matter. But what if we land so and so? It doesn't matter. Kirby has taken this game up 3 levels, and Saban had to adjust. And Bama ain't shy about throwing down in the street for prospects in Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, Mid-Atlantic region, that Maryland, kind of North Carolina, Maryland, Virginia area. And, of course, all of them, both Kirby and Saban, have gone out to California, even Eddie O or whoever's going to go to LSU. Unless you're willing to go and throw down in Atlanta and some other places for prospects and pay $200, $250, $300, I'm not talking about for the whole class, per prospect, then there is no solution. There is no answer. You can get an excellent coach. I mean, Lincoln Riley, I don't know how good he really is. Do I think he's good? Yes. But, I mean, you want to go to the college football playoff and win it, which means you got to beat multiple elite recruiters on the way. I think Ohio State's willing to get aggressive. I mean, they go down to Florida, and, I mean, they get a kid to fly to Atlanta, change flights, and then fly into Columbus from Miami, Tampa, Orlando, and some of the other smaller towns in that area. And I think that's asking a kid to do a lot. All right, so who's going to land the number 1 prospect in the state of Florida? Jimbo. I'll give you an example. What has that prospect wanted to do? If you've monitored him, what do you think he's wanted to do the last 6, 7, 8 months? The number 1 defensive tackle out of Florida. All right. I think you can tell what he's wanted to do, but he hasn't received the offer. Like, I think he wanted to go to Florida, but Florida never gave the deal. They recruited him, but guess who's going to get him? Jimbo, who hasn't done anything except beat Bama in the regular season, which, I mean, that's great, but what do you got? Did you get to Atlanta? I mean, are you in the hunt for the college football playoff? You may go 8-4 this weekend. And so I don't think, and guess what? And I haven't talked to him. I don't know for sure. I think Scott Strickland knows that there is no answer. Because you can't have it both ways. If you talk to Florida faculty, I'm talking about at the highest level, executives, and their donors, they like that they're above the fray. Well, you can't be above the fray. If you want to, if you want a big-time player in Atlanta or you're number 1 player in the state of Florida, you got to offer the same deal that Georgia, Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, and once LSU gets their man on Sunday and others offer. Now, yes, well, Bo, it's not all about every time. You're right. There are some kids that are just going to go to Florida or Georgia or Clemson for a lesser deal. But if you think Krzyzewski and Roy Williams, prior to stepping down, the kids were just wanting to go to Duke or North Carolina, It's not the case. So I think I could argue that there is no solution, Blake, when you look at this.
Yeah. Like you said, you had a guy who had a track record of developing QB play, and it looks like he's got one in the making, but because of the impatience and definitely I don't want to Dan didn't do this all on his own, but some of it is his fault too, right? It goes both ways. But you had what looks like the core nucleus and the core pieces to have a good chance. And if you're Florida moving forward, the only way you compete with Georgia, Alabama, LSU, A&M is to have an elite QB and have someone who understands how to play call that with that elite quarterback. And
so,
I don't know how you change that.
He's leaving Anthony Richardson, who they think is a potential star, the youngest roster in the SEC, and they have some really good players in their freshman and sophomore class. So the flip side of selling this to Lincoln Riley or James Franklin is, hey, man, we're in a good spot. You can get rich. It's a great place to live. The weather is awesome. And there are prospects everywhere. But the flip side is you don't own the state. And that's where Kirby's smart. And is Kirby a rock star, great coach? No. But he's a rock star recruiter, and he's in a state where he and the power structure that he uses have closed the borders down. I mean, they're making it extremely difficult for Saban to go over there and get kids out of the Atlanta area or some of the other pockets that play amazing high school football in the state of Georgia. And so, now Saban and Dabo are having to come in, and Georgia is the front runner. And what Kirby has done, he's like, hey, I went to Georgia. I'm a Georgia alum. I get this thing. And we are going to make it so difficult for anybody to come in and compete and get the creme de la creme of Georgia. And Georgia is the state when it comes to high school / Power 5 prospects. And so I think it's incredible that, one, Saban is struggling to go into Georgia and get who he wants. Prior to Kirby landing in Georgia, what did Saban do?
Own it.
Exactly.
If Kirby hires the right OC, and this year might work out, even though in reality it's a lot more to me about the lack of actual competition than it is Georgia suddenly becoming better, right? I mean, their offense statistically is not very good. So if Kirby ever hired the right OC, a la maybe like what Dabo did at Clemson, Georgia might become as close to a new Alabama dynasty as there could possibly be in the modern era of football, because Kirby's recruiting is second to none.
Yes. And the bottom line is he has basically closed the borders. Right? I mean, I know it sounds corny, but he's put a fence around Georgia, and he's making it very, very difficult for anybody else to come in. See, in Florida, you got to share it with some other schools, and then other schools can come in. Well, Bo, why can't Florida, close the border? I think those two states are totally different. Now, you've got a lot of transient in Atlanta. I get that the last 40 years. But in Florida, I mean, it's unbelievable how many people move in from somewhere else. Kirby still has those pockets where kids grow up a Georgia fan. And so I think it's interesting to look at and to see. And only one team can win every year. So I guess we're just going to fire coaches left and right because, as I said earlier, if a donor is bored and worth $500 million, $600 million, $700, $800, and Florida has, multiple billionaires. I mean, you look at it, they're an super wealthy university. Florida is sitting there going, okay, you've got donors, and once you buy your 2 extra homes, and you got your plane, and you've got the yacht, and you've got a huge portfolio, you sit there and go, I'm bored. I mean, we've already given $10 million to the ballet. We pledged $20 million to the Children's Museum. We pledged another $15 million to the Children's Hospital, wherever you live. And I'm bored. And so I'll buy out a coach.
Yeah, and you're talking about people who never get told no and always get what they want. And so when they see the same person as them who's at Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State or Clemson getting a return on their investment, so to speak, with a title, they sit there and they go, well, wait, where's our title? I'm giving the same amount of money as donor X at Clemson or donor Y at Ohio State. Where's my success?
Right. And as long as rich men or women, I'm talking about super rich, super rich, worth several hundred million, as long as they're willing to say, you know what, I'll be a part of the process. I'll be a part of the process of writing a check to get this staff out. And because I want something new. I've got everything. I got a jet. I'm talking about one that you can stand up and shower in. I've got 2 other houses. I can't even get to all, you can only be in one place at one time. I've got the yacht. We've already given a ton of money away. But I've still got, several $100 million. What do I want to do? Oh, they want me to be a part of this crew of 8 or 10 guys to, throw in $10 million apiece so that we can flip a staff. Okay, I'll do that. I'm bored out of my mind. It's not even fun calling, this, that, or the other every day. So as long as we have boosters that are willing to do this, I think we'll continue to fire coaches and pay enormous buyouts and flip the staffs. And I don't know where that leads us because there can only be, Blake, really 3 super recruiters a year?
Yeah, I mean, even if you want to just say there's only the top 5 or the best 5, right? I mean, that's your top 3 don't ever really change. They just kind of rotate which one's 1, 2, or 3. And then it's like who can grab 4 or 5. And unless you get an NFL quarterback, you're not going to usurp that level of talent disparity.
Yeah, I don't think that – I think there is a gap between the first 2 classes and once you get to 5 is enormous. Whereas the gap between – the 12th ranked class and the 23rd ranked class a lot of times is not Grand Canyon-esque.
Yeah.
And so after the top 2 recruiters, which right now are Bama and Georgia, and a lot of times a 3rd class can be super unbelievable amazing. But I mean, Jimbo's got 2 top 5 classes under his belt and he may go 8-4 this year. And yet they're happy with him and Dan Mullen just got ran.
Yeah. Because he beat Alabama.
Because he beat Bama. He's lost to the 3 worst is not the way to put it, but he has lost to the 5th, 6th, and 7th recruiter in the SEC West. Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss, not in that order. And yet they love him, and he may lose to LSU this weekend and he may get run. I mean, not run. He may go 8-4. 8-4. Jimbo may go 8-4, and yet they're going to be sitting there all offseason. We beat Bama. My gosh, Blake, if he loses, I think he ends up in the Citrus Bowl or something. Unbelievable. Hey, the show is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. We'll have Michael Katz on the Golden Egg coming up next. Ole Miss Insider, djournal.com.